武士的女儿第6章，阳光明媚的新年。父亲死后的那个冬天，我们家就成了一座孤零零的房子。灵魂在屋檐下徘徊的前49天，我并不感到悲伤，因为神龛里不断燃烧的蜡烛和袅袅的香，让我觉得父亲就在身边，而且每个人都以心爱的人的名义忙碌着。因为对佛教徒来说，死亡是一段旅程。在这7个星期里，母亲和吉亚忙着履行被忽视的职责，偿还各种各样的义务，安排家庭事务，以便在第49天，灵魂从世界的枷锁中解放出来，可以愉悦地前往安息之地。但是当繁忙的日子结束，除了日常礼拜的时候，神社里一片黑暗，孤独就来了。我以一种孩子气的真实的方式想象着父亲和许多其他朝圣者一起在一条愉快的道路上跋涉，所有人都穿着覆盖着祭司文字的白色长袍，戴着朝圣者的帽子和稻草凉鞋。他们被埋葬在那里，父亲每天离我越来越远。
Chapter 6 A Sunny New Year. Ours was a lonely house the winter after Father's death. The first 49 days, when the soul hovers near the eaves, was not sad to me, for the constantly burning candles and curling incense of the shrine made me feel that Father was near. And too, everyone was lovingly busy doing things in the name of the dear one. For to Buddhists, death is a journey, and during these 7 weeks, Mother and Jia hastened to fulfill neglected duties, to repay obligations of all kinds, and to arrange family affairs so that, on the 49th day, the soul, freed from world shackles, could go happily on its way to the land of rest. But when the excitement of the busy days was over, and, excepting at the time of daily service, the shrine was dark, then came loneliness. In a childish, literal way, I thought of Father as trudging along a pleasant road with many other pilgrims, all wearing the white robes covered with priestly writings, the pilgrim hats and straw sandals in which they were buried, and he was getting farther and farther from me every day.
随着时间的流逝，我们又回到了过去的生活方式，但似乎每个人、每件事都变了。吉亚工作时不再哼唱古老的民歌，而医师欢快的声音也变得毫无生气。我不再喜欢童话故事了。祖母花了比以往更多的时间来打磨神龛里的黄铜家具。母亲做着她的各种工作，像往常一样平静，但她的笑容是悲伤的。姐姐和我一起做针线活，一起读书，但我们不再把时间浪费在傻笑和吃糖果上。到了晚上，我们都聚集在祖母房间的火炉旁，我们的谈话肯定会转向悲伤的话题，甚至在仆人的大厅里，虽然还夹杂着纺纱和磨米的声音，但欢乐的气氛已经消失了。在这几个月里，我最大的乐趣就是和母亲或医师一起去寺庙。母亲的特别侍女东施总是走在后面，拿着送去坟墓的花。 我们先去庙里向我非常尊敬的老师牧师鞠躬致敬，他给我们端了茶和蛋糕，然后和我们一起去了墓地。一个男牧师提着一桶白木水，上面漂浮着一个细长的竹勺，我们向坟墓鞠躬，然后用小勺把水浇在高高的灰色石头底座上，以示对死者的敬意。长冈的人们对过去是如此的忠诚，以至于在我父亲去世多年后，我听母亲说，她从来没有去过父亲的坟墓，因为她发现那里有老朋友和老城的回忆的滋润。
As time passed on, we settled back into the old ways, but it seemed that everybody and everything had changed. Gia no longer hummed old folk songs as he worked, and Ishi's cheerful voice had grown so lifeless that I did not care for fairy tales anymore. Grandmother spent more time than ever polishing the brass furnishings of the shrine. Mother went about her various duties, calm and quiet as usual, but her smile was sad. Sister and I sewed and read together, but we no longer wasted time in giggling and eating sweets. And when in the evening we all gathered around the firebox in grandmother's room, our conversation was sure to drift to mournful topics. Even in the servants' hall, though talking and laughter still mingled with the sounds of spinning and grinding of rice, the spirit of merriment was gone. During these months, my greatest pleasure was going to the temple with Mother and Ishi. Mother's special maid, Toshi, always walked behind, carrying flowers for the graves. We went first to the temple to bow our respects to the priest, my much honored teacher. He served us tea and cakes, and then went with us to the graves. A boy priest going along to carry a whitewood bucket of water with a slender bamboo dipper floating on the top. We made bows to the graves and then, in respect to the dead, poured water from the little dipper over the base of the tall gravestones. So loyal to the past are the people of Nagaoka that, in many years after my father's death, I heard my mother say that she had never visited his grave when she had not found it moist with memory pourings of friends and old retainers.
2月15日是佛祖的入世庆典，我和东师一起去了寺庙，带着一个装着小水饺的漆盒作为礼物送给僧人。它们被做成世界上所有动物的形状，代表佛陀临终前的哀悼者。除了猫以外，所有的生物都在那里。这位善良的老牧师表示感谢后，拿起一双筷子，把几个饺子盛在盘子里，放在神龛前几分钟，然后收起来吃午饭。那天，他深情地对我说，他必须说再见了，因为他很快就要永远离开卓志了。我不明白他为什么要离开他久居其中深爱着的寺庙，但后来我才知道，尽管他对所有的庙宇形式都是虔诚和忠诚的，但他的头脑已经超越了他的信仰。他加入了少数人之军，他们为了他们所相信的真理而选择贫穷和蔑视。一天晚上，一场大雪过后，我和祖母舒服地坐在他房间里的火炉旁， 我正在做一个麻线球，用来做蚊帐。这是我姐姐结婚嫁妆的一部分。祖母正在教我如何把我的手指熟练地穿过毛茸茸的麻线。尊敬的祖母，我喊道，突然想起我想说的话。我忘了告诉你，明天我们学校要打雪仗，汉娜先生被选为一方的领袖，而我被选为了另一方的领袖。我们要
On February 15th, the Enter into Peace celebration of Buddha's death. I went to the temple with Toshi, carrying as a gift to the priest a lacquer box of little dumplings. They were made in the shapes of all the animals in the world to represent the mourners at Buddha's deathbed, where all living creatures were present except the cat. The good old priest, after expressing his thanks, took a pair of chopsticks and lifting several of the dumplings onto a plate, placed it for a few minutes in front of the shrine before putting it away for his luncheon. That day he told me with deep feeling that he must say farewell, since he was soon to go away from Chikoji forever. I could not understand then why he should leave the temple where he had been so long and which he so dearly loved. But afterward I learnt that, devout and faithful though he was to all the temple forms, his brain had advanced beyond his faith, and he had joined the army of the few who choose poverty and scorn for the sake of what they believe to be the truth. One evening, after a heavy snowfall, grandmother and I were sitting cozily together by the firebox in her room. I was making a hemp thread ball for a mosquito that was to be woven as part of my sister's wedding dowry, and grandmother was showing me how to put my fingers deftly through the fuzzy hemp. Honorable grandmother, I exclaimed, suddenly recalling something I wanted to say. I forgot to tell you that we are going to have a snow fight at school tomorrow. Hannah-san is chosen to be leader on one side and I on the other. We are to...
我太兴奋了，甚至我又不小心把线弄乱，缠成了一团。我猛地一抖，立刻发现自己陷入了困境。等等，祖母说着伸出手来帮助我。你应该唱缠麻之歌。当他把我缠绕的结理顺时，他那颤抖而苍老的声音唱道，小心你的手，它缠绕着麻线，如果顺利，请耐心等待。轻率的举动或仓促的一拉，使小的缠结变得伟大。别再忘记了，他补充道。然后我就把那束解开的麻交还给他。我在想那场雪仗，我抱歉地说。祖母似乎不赞成。月宝，她说，你的大姐在她结婚之前做了足够的麻线，为她的新家做了2个蚊帐。你现在已经11岁了，你的品味应该更像个少女。
I was so interested that again I lost my thread and it matted. I gave it a quick jerk and at once found myself in sad trouble. Wait, said grandmother, reaching out to help me. You should sing the hemp whiting song. As she straightened my tangled thread, her quavery old voice sang, watch your hand as it winds hemp thread. If it mets, with patience wait. for a thoughtless move or a hasty pull makes smaller tangles great. Don't forget again, she added, handing back the entangled bunch of hemp. I was thinking about the snow fight, I said apologetically. Grandmother looked disapproving. Itsubo, she said, her eldest sister, before she was married, made enough hemp thread for both the mosquito nets for her destined home. You have now entered your 11th year and should aim to be more maidenlike in your tastes.
是的，尊敬的祖母，我回答说，觉得她的话太对了，感到很屈辱。这个冬天我要缠很多麻线，我要做许多球，这样我就可以在新年前为姐姐织2张聘礼网了。不用这么着急，祖母回答说，对我的急切心情微笑着，但说话很严肃。我们悲伤的日子不能影响你妹妹的命运，她的婚事已经推迟到吉祥的季节。那时稻田里的稻子会驮着沉重的果实鞠躬。我注意到来我家的人少了，我也错过了高个子的永井先生和他活泼健谈的小妻子的频繁拜访。他是我姐姐的中间人，原来这就是他的意思。我们不知名的新郎要等到秋天才能见到他的新娘，但姐姐不在乎，因为有很多其他有趣的事情。我们很快就忘记了推迟的婚礼，因为我们都在准备即将到来的新年。第1个月的头7天是日本年的重要节日，男人们穿着百褶裙和式章大衣去拜访他们的朋友和家人。在那里，他们受到穿着隆重服装的女主人的接待，他们用最精致和最特别的新年菜肴款待他们。小男孩在天空中用精美的彩绘风筝举行了激动人心的战斗，把刀固定在拉绳上，带着新时代的女孩们，在1年中唯一一次男孩和女孩相聚的社交聚会上，来回地扔着欢快的羽毛箭，或者和兄弟或兄弟的朋友一起玩诗歌卡片，甚至婴儿也参与了这个节目，因为每个人都在新年有另一个生日。
Yes, Honorable Grandmother, I replied, feeling with humiliation how true her words are. This winter, I'll wind plenty of hemp thread. I'll make many balls, so Ishi can weave the 2 nets for sister's dowry before New Year's. There's no need for such haste, Grandmother replied, smiling at my eagerness, but speaking gravely. Our days of sorrow must not influence your sister's fate. Her marriage has been postponed until the good luck season, when the rice fields bow with their burden. I had noticed that fewer shopmen had been coming to the house, and I had missed the frequent visits of tall Mr. Nagai and his brisk, talkative little wife, the go-between couple for my sister. So that was what it meant. Our unknown bridegroom would have to wait until autumn for his bride. Sister did not care. There were plenty of things to be interested in, and we both soon forgot about the delayed wedding in our preparations for the approaching New Year. The first 7 days of the first month were the important holidays of the Japanese New Year. Men in pleated skirts and crest coats made greeting calls on the families of their friends, where they were received by hostess in a ceremonious garments, who entertained them with most elaborate and special New Year dishes. Little boys held exciting battles in the sky, with wonderful painted kites having knives fastened to their pulling cords. Girls in new sashes tossed gay, feathery shuttlecocks back and forth, or played poem cards with their brothers and brothers' friends. And the only social gatherings of the year where boys and girls met together. Even babies had a part in his holiday time. For each wee one had another birthday on New Year's Day, thus suddenly being ushered into its second year before the first had scarcely begun.
那一年，我们的家庭庆祝活动很少，但是我们的悲伤不能使新年的气氛变得太阴沉。自从父亲去世以后，我们第一次听到厨房里传来欢声笑语，伴着热气腾腾的米饭和 Tom Click 在丰盛之家的老鼠这首古老的歌曲中，吉亚和医师的声音混杂在一起。这首歌一直伴随着日本最古老的食物糯米团的制作。我们是好运之神的使者，快乐使者。我们都100岁了，却从未听说过猫可怕的叫声，因为我们是好运之神的使者，快乐使者。大约在新年前的2天，医师来到厨房找我，我和塔基一起坐在席子上，他是来帮忙过新年的。我们正在从一个又低又平的篮子里挑出一堆圆豆子，它们是健康之食，在除夕夜用来投掷和驱赶邪恶的恶魔。吉亚穿着隆重的服装，把它们撒在屋子里，后面紧跟着龙、医师和东师。姐姐在后面跑，都大力地扫、推、扔着。当滚着的豆子飞过门廊，飞进花园，飞到人行道上的时候，我们欢快地唱了一遍又一遍：祝你好运，邪恶出去，出去。
Our family festivities that year were few, but our sorrow was not allowed to darken too much the atmosphere of New Year. And for the first time since Father's death, we heard sounds of merriment in the kitchen, with the hot smell of steaming rice and the tonk click of mochi pounding, where mingled the voices of Gia and Ishi and the old song. The mouse and the house of plenty, which always accompanies the making of the oldest food of Japan, the rice dough called mochi, heard the messengers of the good luck god, the merry messengers. We're 100 years old, yet never have heard the fearful cry of cat. For we're the messengers of the good luck god, the merry messengers. About 2 days before New Year, Ishi came into the kitchen and looking for me. I was sitting on a mat with Taki, who was here to help for New Year time, and we were picking out round beans from a pile in a low, flat basket. They were the stones of health, with which the demons of evil were to be pelted and chased away on New Year's Eve. Gia, in ceremonious dress, would scatter them through the house, closely followed by Taki, Ishi, and Toshi, with sister and Itsubu running after, all vigorously sweeping, pushing, tossing, and throwing. And while the rolling beans were flying across the porches and to the garden or onto the walks, our high-pitched voices would merrily sing over and over, "Good luck within, evil go out, out."
一是有些事要办，母亲说我可以和她一起去看一些欢乐的景色。我多么清楚地记得那个阳光灿烂的冬日啊！我们穿过街道，走的是只有3英尺深的洞雪墙之间的小路。因为那个冬天，我们只下了很少的早雪，直到新年之后才挖隧道。人行道上有些地方的嵌板都塌下来了，就像夏天的时候一样。商店里透出天空，显得很亮。每个门口的两边都有一棵松树，上面伸展着一根神道教的绳子，绳子上有一撮破烂的树枝和晃来晃去的锯齿形纸。那条街上的大多数商店都很小，但店面都很开阔。我可以清楚地看到一排排倾斜的货架上摆满了当季最吸引人的商品，每一家商店前都挤满了人，许多人是从附近的村庄来的。因为天气异常，长冈有望供应新年的大部分产品，以吸引我们国家人民的简单品味。
Ishi has some errands to do, and Mother has said that I might go with her to see the gay sights. How well remember that wonderful sunshiny winter day. We crossed the streets on paths, caught between walls of frozen snow only 3 feet deep. For we had but little early snow that winter, and no tunnels were made until after New Year. The sidewalk panels were down in some places, just like summertime, and the shops seemed very light with the sky showing. On each side of every doorway stood a pine tree, and stretched above was a Shinto rope with its ragged tops and dangling zigzag papers. Most of the shops on that street were small with open fronts, and we could plainly see the sloping tiers of shelves laden with all the bright attractions of the season. In front of every shop was a crowd, many of the people having come from nearby villages, for the weather had been unusual, and Nagaoka had hopefully laid in a supply of New Year goods that would appeal to the simple taste of our country people.
对我来说，许多景色虽然熟悉，但因为周围环境的新奇，就有了戏剧的刺激和魅力。在一个地方，当我停下来拿东西的时候，我看到一群10岁或12岁的男孩，有的背上还背着婴儿，踩着雨天用的高高的木屐，咔嗒咔嗒地走着。他们停下来买了一个用糯米和黑糖做成的糖球，把它打碎，每人拿一块，还不忘把剩下的碎片塞到醒着的婴儿嘴里。当然，他们都是些底层的孩子，但我自己也能尝到这种美味的甜头，因为我的眼睛跟着他们走到下一家商店。他们推推搡搡地穿过人群，走向一个陈列着会有龙和演员面具的大风筝的地方。这些风筝看起来真的很可怕。在有些地方，年轻的女孩们聚集在商店周围，商店的货架上摆放着一排排鲜艳的脚趾钉的木茄，低矮的屋檐下摆着长长的草球，上面插满了新年的发卡、松叶和梅花，显得很鲜艳。当然，那里有许多商店出售彩绘的羽毛球和长木棒，木棒上放着50个5颜6色的羽毛球。最拥挤的人群都聚集在这些商店前，因为没有人因为太穷或太忙而不能在新年玩。
To me, many of the sights, familiar though they were, had, in the novelty of their surroundings, the excitement and fascination of a play. At one place, when Ishi stopped to get something, I watched a group of 10 or 12-year-old boys, some with babies on their backs, clattering along on their high rainy day clogs. They stopped to buy a candy ball made of puffed rice and black sugar, which they broke, each taking a piece and not forgetting to stuff some scraps in the mouths of the babies that were awake. They were low-class children, of course, to eat on the street, but I could taste the delicious wheat myself as my eyes followed them to the next shop, where they pushed and jostled themselves through a crowd toward a display of large kites painted with dragons and actors' masks that would look truly fearful gazing down from the sky. In some places, young girls were gathered about shops whose shelves held rows of wooden clocks with bright-colored totos, or where, beneath low eaves, swung long straw cones stuck full of New Year hairpins, gay with pine leaves and plum blossoms. There were, of course, many shops which sold painted battledores and long split sticks holding rows of 5 or 10 feathery shuttlecocks of all colors. The biggest crowds of all were in front of these shops, for nobody was too poor or too busy to play Hannah on New Year days.
那是一次美妙的散步，我一直很高兴我去了，因为在我的童年记忆中，这是唯一一次在新年的时候，我们有阳光明媚的街道。尽管我们的房子很安静，但新年的头3天，母亲还是忙着接听我们的男性亲戚和家人朋友的电话。招待他们的有各种蔬菜汤、味增酿鲑鱼、炸豆腐、某种海藻和冷冻明胶。麻薯当然无处不在，因为麻薯的意思是恭喜发财，是新年假期每家每户必不可少的东西。与食物一起上桌的是一种叫做 Toso 清酒的米酒。这种酒除了在某些出生的场合和新年时很少用到。Toso 的意思是青春之泉，它的意义是随着新的一年的到来，新的生活开始。接下来的几天就不那么正式了，老仆人都来拜访母亲。每逢这个节日，总有一天母亲会招待家里所有的仆人，他们会聚集在大客厅里，穿着最好的衣服，然后我们端来了几张小漆桌，上面摆满了年货。我和姐姐端来了米饭，即使妈妈帮忙，有龙、医师、东师和金，还有吉亚和2个男仆，所有人都表现得很隆重。金是一个快乐的人，有时会胆怯地模仿妈妈的庄严的样子，拿大家开玩笑。母亲总是面带端庄善良的微笑，但我和姐姐不得不停止我们的欢乐，因为我们努力模仿金和东师的深鞠躬和礼貌，一切都非常正式的不正式，非常令人愉快。
That was a wonderful walk, and I've always been glad I took it, for it was the only time I remember of my childhood when we had sunshiny streets at New Year time. Notwithstanding our quiet house, the first 3 days of the New Year, Mother was pretty busy receiving calls from our men kinsfolk and family friends. They were entertained with every vegetable soup, with miso-stuffed salmon, fried bean curd, seaweed of a certain kind, and frozen gelatin. Mochi, as a matter of course, was in everything, for mochi meant happy congratulations and was indispensable to every house during New Year holidays. With the food was served a rice wine called toso sake, which was rarely used except on certain natal occasions and in New Year time. Toso means fountain of youth, and its significance is that with the new year, a new life begins. The following days were more informal. Old retainers and old servants called to pay respect, and always on one day during the season, Mother entertained all the servants of the house. They would gather in the large living room, dressed in their best clothes. Then little lacquer tables with their dishes laden with New Year dainties were brought in, and the rice served by sister and myself. Even Mother helped. They were Taki, Ishi, Toshi, and Ken, with Jia and 2 men servants, and all behaved with great ceremony. Ken, who had a merry heart, would sometimes make fun for all by rather timidly imitating Mother's stately manner. Mother always smiled with dignified good nature, but sister and I had to quench our merriment, for we were endeavoring to emulate Ken and Toshi in our deep bows and respectful manners. It was all very formally informal and most delightful.
在这种情况下，母亲有时会邀请一个木匠，一个在我们家里一直被当作次要的仆人的老人。在旧日的日本，一个好的木匠不仅仅是木工，还包括建筑师、设计师和室内装潢师等职业。由于这个人在长冈被称为五郎良大师，这是对一个特别聪明和熟练的木匠大师的赞美称号，而且他是他名字的几代人的后代，所以他很受尊敬。我非常喜欢五郎，他为我做了一个漂亮的带有梯子状楼梯的小玩具屋，赢得了我的心。在我做纸娃娃的那些年里，他是我心目中的骄傲。在父亲死后的第一个新年，五郎看起来似乎有些安静和悲伤，直到母亲邀请他，然后他才开朗起来，变得健谈。吃到一半，他突然停了下来，毕恭毕敬地把他的 toso 酒举到前额，礼貌地向坐在隔壁房间门口垫子上的母亲鞠了一躬。尊敬的夫人，他开始说，上次您的门口挂着松木装饰，您盛情款待我的时候，我尊敬的主人也在这里。是的，他是这样的，母亲苦笑着回答。情况变了，五郎。尊敬的主人总是机智过人。五郎接着说，任何疾病和不幸都不能使他的头脑和舌头迟钝。正是在您的盛情款待下，尊敬的夫人，尊敬的主人走进了房间，并向我们所有人保证，我们受到了热情的欢迎。我曾经写过一首谦卑的诗，要求回复以使其完整。我大胆地向尊敬的主人重复，要求他用结尾来纪念我。我的诗适合迎接新年，祝愿这座光荣的豪宅好运、健康、善意。
On these occasions, Mother sometimes invited a carpenter, an old man who was always treated in our family as a sort of minor retainer. In old Japan, a good carpenter included the profession of architect, designer, and interior decorator. as well as of a worker in wood. And since this man was known in Nagaoka as Master Goro Beam, the complimentary title of an exceptionally clever and skillful master carpenter, and in addition was the descendant of several generations of his name. He was much respected. I was very fond of Goro. He had won my heart by making for me a beautiful little doll house with a ladder-like stairway. It was my heart's pride during all the paper doll years of my life. On the first New Year's Day that Goro came after Father's death, he seemed quiet and sad until Mother had served him toso sake. Then he brightened up and grew talkative. In the midst of the feast, he suddenly paused and lifting his toso sake cup very respectfully to the level of his forehead, he bowed politely to Mother, who was sitting on her cushion just within the open doorway of the next room. "Honorable Mistress," he began, "when your gateway had the pine decoration the last time, and you graciously entertained me like this, my honorable master was here." "Yes, so he was," Mother replied with a sad smile. "Things have changed, Goro." "Honorable master ever possessed wit," Goro went on. "No ill health or ill fortune could dull his brain or his tongue. It was in the midst of your gracious hospitality, honorable mistress, that honorable master entered the room and assured us all that we were received with agreeable welcome. I had composed a humble poem of the kind that calls for a reply to make it complete, and was so bold as to repeat it to honorable master with a request that he honor me with closing words. My poem, as suitable for a New Year greeting, was a wish for good luck, good health, and goodwill to this honorable mansion.
七神，吉祥之神，用所劳的手包围这座房子，没有什么能与他们擦肩而过。那么，尊敬的主人，五郎深深地鞠了一躬，嘴角露出一丝有趣的皱纹，眼睛里闪着一丝有趣的光芒，像闪电一样迅速地回答道：“从这所房子，贫穷之神永远无法逃脱，但必须永远待在里面。”五郎非常喜欢他的笑话诗，母亲温柔的微笑和他同伴们愉悦的笑声结合在一起，他们总是准备为他们所喜爱的和尊敬的主人的任何话鼓掌。但眼睛明亮的金对医师小声说了些什么，医师微笑着点头，然后龙和东师听到了一些话，他们也笑了。直到后来我才知道金的耳语是：贫穷之神有时也是仁慈的，他们与好运之神沆瀣一气，把喜乐囚禁在我们的城门内。旧日本的民主精神就是这样活下来的。
The good fortune gods, encircle this house with safely locked hands, and nothing can pass them by. Then honorable master, and Goro deeply bowed, with a wrinkle of fun on his lips, and a twinkle of fun in his eyes, replied as quickly as a flash of light, "Alas, alas, then from this house the god of poverty can never escape, but must always stay within." Goro enjoyed his joke poem so much that Mother united her gentle smile with the gay laughter of his companions, who were always ready to applaud any word spoken in praise of the master they had all loved and revered. But bright-eyed Kin whispered to Ishi, and Ishi smiled and nodded. Then Taiki and Toshi caught some words, and they too smiled. Not until afterward did I know that Kin's whisper was, "The gods of poverty are sometimes kind. They've locked their hands with the good luck gods and prisoned joy within our gates. Thus lived the spirit of democracy in old Japan."